There's a quiet category of places in the United States that almost never show up in relocation guides. Not because they are dangerous or expensive, but because people keep choosing not to move there. These are towns where housing is cheap, traffic barely exists, and listings sit online for months without much interest. On paper, they look like opportunity. In practice, they reveal something else entirely. Because here's the question most people don't ask. If a place is affordable, why is it still empty? And more importantly, what do you actually experience once you live there day to day? Because the answer is not just lower costs. It is a series of trade-offs that slowly reshape how you live, how you plan, and what you expect from a place. Let's break that down. Number 10 is Cairo, Illinois. Cairo sits at one of the most geographically important points in the country, right where the Mississippi and Ohio rivers meet. Historically, that should have made it a major hub, and for a time, it was. Today, housing is often reported as some of the cheapest in the region, sometimes at levels that feel almost unreal compared to national averages. At first glance, that sounds like a win. But this is where the first shift happens. The population has been declining for decades, and when people leave, systems follow quietly behind them. Schools merge or close, healthcare options narrow, and basic services become less reliable. Daily life changes in subtle ways. You do not just run errands anymore, you plan them. A simple grocery trip can turn into a longer drive, and that becomes part of your routine. So, the savings are real, but so is the inconvenience, and that trade-off shows up more often than you expect. Number 9. Blythe, California. Blythe offers something that looks appealing from a distance. Open space, clear skies, and plenty of sunlight. It sits along Interstate 10, which gives the impression of connectivity. And for a short visit, it works. It feels quiet, manageable, almost relaxing. But living there introduces a different reality. The local economy is heavily tied to agriculture and correctional facilities, which limits job diversity. Many reports suggest that long-term career growth often requires leaving the area. Then there's the climate. Summers are not just hot. They regularly push into extreme ranges where daily routines have to adjust. Mornings start earlier, afternoons slow down, and evenings become the main window for activity. It sounds manageable until you realize it shapes everything, from social life to energy costs. So the space is real, but the flexibility is not. Number 8. Clarksdale, Mississippi. Clarksdale carries cultural weight. It is closely tied to blues history, and that identity still draws visitors. There is a sense of place here that many towns would want. That creates a surface appeal that feels authentic. But staying in one place economically while the rest of the country moves forward creates a gap. Outside of tourism pockets, economic activity is limited. Many areas show signs of long-term disinvestment, and access to services can be inconsistent. So you are not just living in a historic town. You are living in a place where the past is often more active than the present. That has a subtle effect over time. It feels stable at first, then gradually static. Number 7 is Gallup, New Mexico. Gallup stands out visually. Desert landscapes, wide skies, and strong cultural connections give it a distinct identity. It feels different from most towns in a good way. But that uniqueness comes with distance. Gallup is several hours away from major metropolitan areas, and that isolation shapes daily life more than most people expect. Job markets are limited, retail options are narrow, and many services require travel. Here is where the pattern becomes clearer. It is not just about having fewer options. It is about having fewer backups when something disappears. If a store closes, there may not be another one nearby. If a service becomes unavailable, you are looking at a long drive. That creates a kind of quiet fragility in everyday life. At this point, a pattern is forming. These towns are not unlivable. In many ways, they can be calm and even appealing. But they lack redundancy, and redundancy is what makes modern life feel stable. Now the consequences start to build. Here is number 6, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Pine Bluff has the infrastructure of a place that once worked very well. Roads, schools, and industrial remnants all suggest a stronger economic past. It looks like a town that should still be thriving. But in recent years, many reports describe ongoing economic challenges, with limited job opportunities and crime rates often noted as above national averages. This changes how you move through the town. You become more aware of your surroundings, more selective about where you go, and more cautious with routines. It is not constant danger, but it is constant awareness. And over time, that becomes mentally tiring. So affordability starts to carry a different kind of cost. Number 5. Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Johnstown tells a story that used to be common across parts of the United States. It was built on industry, supported by manufacturing, and sustained by a strong working population. When those industries declined, the structure remained, but the economic engine did not. Housing is still very affordable, sometimes far below what you would expect for a town with that level of infrastructure. But this is where the equation changes. You can afford to live there, but building a career there is a different challenge entirely. There is also a historical layer that still shapes how the town feels. In the late 1800s, a catastrophic flood destroyed much of the area in a matter of hours. Entire neighborhoods were wiped out, and that sense of sudden disruption left a lasting imprint. Even today, there is a quiet awareness that things can change quickly, and that feeling does not fully disappear. We move on. Number 4. El Centro, California. El Centro creates a strange contradiction. It is located in California, but it does not feel like the version of California most people imagine. Housing is significantly cheaper than in coastal cities, which makes it look like an entry point into the state. But the broader picture is more complicated. The local economy is heavily tied to agriculture and government employment, and unemployment is often reported as among the highest in the state. Then there's the climate again. Long summers, extreme heat, and limited variation begin to shape daily life in ways that are easy to underestimate. Outdoor activities become seasonal at best, energy costs rise, and social patterns shift toward avoiding the hottest parts of the day. So, the lower housing cost comes with a narrower lifestyle. Now here's number 3, East St. Louis, Illinois. East St. Louis sits directly across from a major metropolitan area, which should create opportunity. In theory, proximity should solve many problems. But this is where that assumption breaks down. Many reports suggest long-term economic decline, high poverty levels, and significant infrastructure challenges. Crime is frequently cited as a major concern. So while opportunity exists nearby, access to it is not always simple or consistent. You are close to something better, but not fully connected to it. That creates a different kind of frustration. It is not isolation in distance, but isolation in access. And that distinction matters more than people expect. Number 2. Detroit, Michigan, and certain neighborhoods. Detroit is often used as a symbol of urban comeback, and in many areas, that is accurate. There has been visible investment, new development, and signs of stabilization. So, the common belief is simple: buy cheap, wait for growth, and benefit from the recovery. But that assumption does not apply everywhere. Some neighborhoods remain disconnected from that progress. Services can be inconsistent, property conditions vary widely, and investment is uneven. So the idea that cheap housing automatically leads to future upside starts to fall apart. In some places, low prices reflect long-term conditions that are not changing quickly. And that realization challenges one of the most common relocation strategies. So we come to number 1, Centralia, Pennsylvania. Centralia represents the extreme end of this entire pattern. Decades ago, an underground coal fire began burning beneath the town. It never stopped. It still has not stopped. Over time, most residents left, infrastructure was removed, streets disappeared, and the town slowly became empty. And yet, technically, it still exists. Which leads to the final point. At some stage, a town does not just become unpopular, it becomes functionally obsolete. And that is the logical endpoint of everything we have been looking at. So what actually happens if you move to a town nobody wants to live in? You do not just get cheaper housing, you take on the reasons it is cheap. Limited jobs, fewer services, longer distances, and less flexibility in how you live your daily life. Sometimes it feels peaceful, sometimes it feels limiting, often it feels like both at the same time.